Hey everyone, it's Gina from energyyoga.com, and many clients have asked about fermented vegetables, what they're for, how do you make them, and why are they important. So that's what we're going to do today. This is my favorite recipe, one of the easier ones to do. The importance of fermented vegetables is for the health of the gut, and the healthier your gut is, the healthier your brain is, because we all know I focus on brain health. So one of the first things you want to get, and we're actually going to make fermented vegetables that you can reuse later, the leftovers, to make another starter to start another batch. Or you can go online, or even your local health food store will have your probiotic starter. This one I got off of Body Ecology, but you can buy one at any store. On the inside you'll find little foil packets, and this is actually your starter. So it's almost even like when you have like a bread starter. And there's all sorts of different bacteria in these that make up your normal flora, which keep your gut happy. The reason that fermented vegetables are nice is because you're growing them on your own counter, they're hardier, and more of them make it past the acid of your stomach. So if you're going to buy probiotics that you take by mouth, like in a tablet, you want to make sure they're enterically coated, so that they actually make it past the stomach, because you want it in your intestines, not so much in your stomach, you want it in your gut. What happens when you eat fermented vegetables year after year after year, and you don't have to sit down and eat a big bowl. A lot of people think you're supposed to eat it like a bowl of cereal, and that's not it. It's more like a condiment. So it's easy to sneak in things like a sandwich, you can sprinkle it on a salad. It's easy to sneak in guacamole, hummus. There's lots of places you can sneak a little bit of it in. If worse comes to worse and you absolutely cannot stand the taste, because it does have a little bit of a tang like yogurt does, you can actually sneak it in those little gel caps and just take the juice, put it in a gel cap, and most children can swallow that if they absolutely refuse to eat the vegetables. So we'll go ahead and get started. What I did is I started with our probiotic starter, and I put it in a small, about half a cup, 3/4 of a cup of warm water, and you pour it in there with a little bit of sugar. I like to use just our local raw honey, because if you buy honey from the area that you live in, it helps with your allergies. And I've been letting that set for about 20 minutes, and that's going to wake up the bacteria, they're going to eat the sugars, they're going to grow and make babies, and all that other good stuff. So while that's setting, I went ahead and shredded 2 heads of green cabbage, a head of the purple cabbage, 6 big carrots, and then this is ginger. It's about a 3-inch chunk of ginger that I kind of shredded, or you can dice it up. I like the pieces in it really small, but you can just cut it up real nicely, in big chunks if you like bigger pieces. I like mine really small because then I can sneak it into things. And then we're also going to make what is called the brine for this, which is just water. And I've taken a small scoop of the green cabbage, a little bit of the purple cabbage, the carrot, the ginger, and also 6 cloves of garlic. And I put that in just on a little mixer, so you can put that on, so it dices that up. And this is actually going to be our brine mixture, along with our probiotic starter. Now we're going to pack this into jars, because it's going to have to set on your counter outside of your refrigerator 3 to 7 days. And then you can put it into your refrigerator to slow down the fermenting process. A lot of times I'll use a big jar, because obviously this makes a big recipe. However, it's easier if you want to use smaller jars. So if you want to leave one out on the counter, use a little bit, and then you can go back in, and that way you don't have to have the big jar in the fridge. But either way, it makes a big batch. You're going to want to save your outer leaves of your cabbage. And I saved a little bit of both. And what we're going to do with these, once the jar's packed full, we're going to use these to stuff the top of the jar so there's no free air in the bottle. Because we want the product to ferment, we don't want it to rot. So if you look at how brightly colored all the vegetables are, they will stay this bright. The only thing that this will do is, because I like to use some of the purple cabbage, is when you do mix it together, it does have a tendency to turn the color of the brine, that kind of purpley color. Whereas if you don't use that, it's going to stay bright green and bright red. If, as it's fermenting, it starts to turn gray, then it's rotting. It's not actually fermenting. And I just like to use my big roaster pan. And again, I like to have mine shredded up, but you can also just chop it. I'm going to put this at the bottom because we're going to mix it up. My favorite little mixer is a little pasta spoon. I'm going to set that aside. And then I'm actually going to go ahead and add our probiotic starter. Make sure you get all the good stuff off the bottom. And again, it's a half a cup of warm water. And then since I'm going to use this as a vegetable starter with the fermented vegetables instead of just eating them, I actually mixed in a half a cup of warm water with 2 pouches of the probiotics. And those are the friendly, happy bacteria. So I got that mixed in a little bit. And then we're going to go ahead and take the rest of our ingredients, which are 6 carrots, another head of purple cabbage, and about a 3-inch chunk of ginger. And that's the ginger root, not ginger powder, not the dried ginger, not candy ginger, just the actual ginger root that you buy at the store. And that's probably the most aromatic part next to the garlic. Okay, so now comes the tricky part, is getting it all mixed. Because I've got our probiotic starter in there, and then I'm going to pour our brine over it. So I used a little bit more water, took a little bit of each cabbage, carrot, and ginger, and then there's 6 cloves of garlic in here. And then I'm going to pour that over the top. And I can smell the garlic now with the ginger. So as you can tell, it's actually pretty easy to make. For people who absolutely can't stand cabbage, you can use kale. Some people I've known to actually ferment peas. So you can really use just about any kind of vegetable. This one's nice just because everything's pretty easy to get, and it's pretty and it's colorful. So I'm just going to slowly turn this over and over to get it all mixed in. And then we'll actually leave it on the counter 3 to 7 days before putting it in the refrigerator. A lot of people get worried that it's going to get icky or grow terrible bacteria. Now I suppose if your pans were dirty or the glass jars that you pack them in weren't clean, you could probably have that problem. But like I said, it'll keep this nice bright color that you see right now while it's fermenting. And it also keeps some of the crispiness, because a lot of people think, oh, they're fermented vegetables and they're mushy. I've not had mushy fermented vegetables. I mean, I'm sure kale does get a little bit soft if you ferment it, but I don't know that I've actually had any that are mushy. So if that texture part's an issue, you don't have to worry about that. And we'll just keep mixing it until we've got all the colors blended. And there should be, if you push the vegetables aside, there should be just a little bit of juice at the bottom. So if you don't have any juice at the bottom, get a little bit more water and add that in. And I know this is going to look like a lot of product, but once we start packing it in the jars, it does pack together pretty tightly. So again, if you have younger kids or people in your family maybe that you've not introduced to fermented vegetables, or they don't really like the taste of yogurt, like I said, I like to shred mine up really, really tiny so then I can sneak it into different things. Because even if you just sprinkle a little bit on a sandwich while you're making it, you're still getting some of the probiotics. Just about got it mixed. You want to make sure you get all the goodies off the bottom. All right. And I have just a little bit of juice on the bottom, because any extra juice that's on the bottom will actually pour into the jars. And any kind of a glass jar with a tight fitting lid will work. And if you don't actually have a well-fitting lid, you can use like a heavy plastic with a rubber band, but it really needs to be airtight. All right, I think we've just about got it mixed in. And we've got large jars, medium jars, and small jars. So you can use whichever size you think will work best. And then we're just going to start filling it in. And I like the little spaghetti spoon fork because it does a good job of catching it. And some health food stores actually already sell fermented vegetables. However, it is nice to make your own because you're going to find out it's way, way less expensive. And then I'm going to use the side of the spoon. I'm going to start packing it down. Now this jar, the mouth of the jar is big enough. You can actually use like a potato masher to smash that down. But on your smaller jars, you might have to use a wooden spoon. And you do want to pack it down in layers, so don't just fill up the whole jar and then try to pack it all down. Fill it up about halfway and then really pack it in there. And then I do like to use as much organic products as possible. But that would just be me. I did make one batch that did actually rot. I'm not exactly sure if it was because I didn't have organic food that time, because it was a time that I just ran to the supermarket because I was in a hurry and bought my cabbage. So as you can tell, we can actually get quite a bit in this one jar. And this is actually something you can get the kids involved with too, because you know they kind of like to play with this kind of stuff and pack it down. And for some people, if you have those wooden rolling pins that don't have the little handle on each end, it's just a big, almost looks like a big dowel rod. Those are great for packing this down. And then I'm actually going to fill it up as far as I can because we don't want a big gap at the top of the jar. So I'm going to put it in layer by layer and pack it down. And I know a lot of people are like, wow, that's a lot of fermented cabbage. But you'll find out if you're using a teaspoon or a tablespoon at every meal, every other meal, you're going to find out you're going to go through it pretty quick. For people that have digestive issues, say like irritable bowel, depression, heartburn, any of those kind of things, you're going to find that these should probably be your best friend. To learn to ferment vegetables at home, there is a book, it was written, I bet probably 8 or 10 years ago, called The Gut and Psychology Syndrome, and it talks about the link between poor digestion and gut inflammation with depression and autism and things like that. I believe the woman who wrote it had a child with either autism or depression, and that's a pretty nice read. And then there's a book written by a doctor called The Second Brain, which also talks about the importance of, you know, the gut health and how that works with the brain. Okay, so now this one we've got pretty full. And I've packed it in there a little bit. So we want to leave just a little bit of room because they're going to expand a little bit. But I'm going to take a cabbage leaf. I'm going to fold that over. to kind of fill that space in, because as it expands, I can always pull that out. And yeah, you can eat these if you want to. But mainly it's just to help keep the compression. And then I'm going to put the lid on. Nice and tight. And now you have your jar. And if you move it around, you can see some of the juices moving around. Now you have your jar of vegetables that are ready to ferment, 3 to 7 days just on your counter. So you don't have to put it in the fridge, you just set it on the counter, and in 3 to 7 days you can start enjoying them. And then what you can do is when you're almost done, you have that little bit just left on the bottom, is take that out and you're going to get your mixer, the one we had where we made our brine. Is you can take one of your mixers, put water in it, take that last little bit that's in there, dump that in here, mix it on your little mixer, and you have your new brine and your new starter for your next batch of fermented vegetables. So you don't have to buy brand new starters each time. However, once you've used the starter 2 or 3 times, it's a good idea just to go ahead and start all over. And enjoy. It's done. Oh, question?
How much did all that cost?
Actually, that's a good question. Probably all together with starter. Now, I bought a huge thing of garlic, which is only $2 or $3. But by the time you buy the honey, the starter, 3 heads of cabbage, organic, carrots, and then the ginger, I want to say it was about $40. Mm-hmm. Maybe 44 by the time you get taxed and that kind of stuff. Which you figure... I'm trying to think of how much a bottle of probiotics are, probably 25 or 30.
They're expensive.
You know, so yeah, I mean, it's actually pretty comparable, and especially if you wait until you get to the bottom and you use that last little bit and you just use it over and over, it's actually much more affordable. Good question, though.
And you know where you got those wide mouth jars? Those look pretty handy.
You know, honestly, I don't remember. I bet I just got them at the supermarket when I was there. But you can use any kind of jar. These are just, like, I'm going to put some in just a small canning jar. That works great. But you're not going to heat it. You do not heat. So if you're going to make something and add your fermented vegetables, you don't heat it, because then you've just killed off all the bacteria that you grew. Some people do like they're more like a little snap-on lid. And these are fine, but they do have to have that lip. I don't know if you can see that from the camera. There's a lip all the way around. So then when that's snapped on, I mean, it's airtight. And then when you pull it off, I mean, it takes a little bit of effort. Some of them just come on, but you get air in it, and they're more likely to rot instead of ferment. So yeah. So any kind of jar really works. Otherwise, you can do plastic with a really tight rubber band. But it does work best if you have a tight lid. So we'll even stuff some of our small jars. And we're